He said, I promise you, today you will be with me in paradise. Welcome to Wright Ideas with Susan, where I put up simple ideas to help people like you who are teaching kids about the Bible, about Jesus, and Christian values. And today I'm going to be demonstrating a Bible storytelling example from Luke chapter 23, verses 18 to 44. And I'm going to be breaking this up into two parts. And in part one, I'll demonstrate it for you, and I'm going to show you a resource that I use, and also how I use it with children, and also how I actually made it out of just scrap pieces of paper. So that'll be part one. And in part two, I'm going to share with you some footage of me using this story, along with the 5 questions of Bible storytelling. Okay, let's get into the story. Pilate wanted to set Jesus free, but the people yelled, "Crucify him!" Pilate even tried to get them to change their minds, but they yelled louder, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Finally, Pilate gave in, and he handed Jesus over to the soldiers to be crucified. Later that day, they brought Jesus to a hill called the Skull, and there they nailed Jesus to a cross in between 2 criminals, one on the right and one on the left. As Jesus was dying, the crowd watched. As Jesus was dying, the religious leaders mocked him and made fun of him. "He saved others. Let him save himself," they said. As Jesus was dying, the soldiers gambled for his clothes. They bullied and made fun of him. "If you're really the king of the Jews, save yourself," they said. But as Jesus was dying, he said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." One of the criminals said, "If you're really the Messiah, prove it. Save yourself and save us too while you're at it." But the other criminal piped up and said, "Don't you fear God? This man, he's done nothing wrong. We deserve to die for the crimes that we have done." And then he turned to Jesus and said, "Jesus, please remember me when you come into your kingdom." And you know what Jesus said to that man? He said, "I promise you that on this very day, you will be with me in paradise." Okay, after I share the story once through, then what I do is I give the various pieces to the kids. Say, okay, I'm going to tell the story again, and I'm going to hand out the pieces to the story. And when it's your time to come and put it up on the board, you come and you put it up on the board. And so I get the kids involved in the story, and I get them listening because they're listening out for when their piece goes up on the board. And then I ask them, after we go through it again, what did we learn about Jesus from this moment in time? What did we learn about him? And so we talk about that. I might even list it up on the board, and they could copy it on a sheet of paper, depending on their age. And then I'll say, okay, do you want to hear that story again? And the kids will go, yes, yes, yes. Usually they do. I might pass out those things again to different kids and then tell the story again and say, now, what do we learn about people from this story? And we talk about that. And then I direct them to the 2 people that I wanted to focus on in this event, and that's the 2 criminals and their response to Jesus. There were 2 different views or responses to Jesus here. One criminal on this side and one criminal on this side. What were the differences? And so we talk about that. And I say, you know, kids, the choice of those criminals are the same choice that every one of us today makes. We're going to be like one or the other. How are we like one or the other? And I get them to tell me how people are like one or the other, which usually gets down to people who believe and recognize Jesus for who he is and recognize they need forgiveness and they spend eternity in heaven with God. And then people who say, nah, got to prove it, you're not real, I don't really, nah, yeah, it's all a myth, I don't want God, I don't want this God thing. And I said, that's the two choices that every person on earth makes sometime in their life. And then at that point I could share my story about when I made a choice to believe in Jesus, or depending on time, you just kind of go with it. But this is really the crux of this story that works really well, and kids get it. They really get it, in many ways, much more than adults. So that's how I would bring them into this story. Now I'm going to share with you the way that I actually made this resource. It was just a bunch of scrap paper, colored paper, and I just tore it and ripped it. But let me just share with you how I actually made the resource. Okay, did you like that idea with Bible storytelling? If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you'd like more simple teaching ideas, make sure you subscribe, tap the bell, and you'll be notified when part 2 goes up. I also have a really good playlist on Bible storytelling examples that you can check out, so check that out when you have time. Thanks again for watching, and may God bless you as you teach the next generation about Jesus. Conscience, how do I spell that? See, yeah, conscience. Conscience. Is that right? Conscience.